Morning. My name is Scott Carr. I am District Governor for 2017-18 in Rotary District 5340, and I'm very pleased to be talking today about youth protection and some of the changes that we have in store on the youth protection front. Um, this is an incredibly important topic for all of us because so much of what we do within Rotary really is centered around serving youth. Whether it's Rotarians at Work Day or reading in schools, youth are a vital part of everything that Rotary stands for. And within our district, we actually have quite a few programs that are dedicated exclusively to serving youth, whether it's LEAD or Model United Nations. It could be Music Camp, which is performed in conjunction with the San Diego Youth Symphony, or Rotary Youth Exchange. Could be Interact, RILA, could be Student of the Month, which is usually done on an individual club basis, or even within our Rotaract clubs. These programs are absolutely critical to Rotary's success in giving back to each of our communities. It is the policy of Rotary International District 5340 that every Rotary activity conducted or sponsored by or within District 5340 will take place in an environment that is absolutely free of abuse and harassment of any kind. As a district, we're absolutely committed to creating and maintaining the safest possible environments for each of the participants in our Rotary activities. It's the duty of each Rotarian, spouse or partner, or other volunteer to safeguard our youth to the best of their ability and to protect the welfare of and to prevent the abuse and harassment of children and young people with whom they come into contact. During today's webinar, what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about some of the youth protection policies that District 5340 has in place, some of the best practices that people can take when they're engaged in activities where other youth are involved, and also provide information for not only youth protection officers within clubs, but also other Rotarians on best practices and how they can become youth certified for working in these activities. So let's start with a basic definition. What are we talking about when we mention abuse and harassment? Well, abuse and harassment can come in many different forms, whether it's emotional or verbal abuse, could be physical abuse, could be neglect. It could also be sexual abuse and sexual harassment. The statistics are very sobering. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before they turn 18 years of age. And this year alone, 325,000 children are at risk of becoming victims of commercial child sexual exploitation. This is a problem that is not necessarily visible, but is absolutely happening, especially in our district. And we have to be cognizant of it and also be on the alert for the warning signs. Some additional statistics, according to the Rape, Abuse, Incest National Network, every 8 minutes a child is sexually assaulted. And from 2009 to 2013, 63,000 children per year were victims of sexual abuse. And in those cases, 93% of the abusers were known to victims. Going back to what is abuse and harassment, and I've heard this on occasion where individuals say, this will never happen in Rotary. But unfortunately, in today's day and age, that is not a defense. No organization, including Rotary, is immune to the threat of abuse and harassment with youth. Rotary International as a whole takes youth protection incredibly seriously. And any abuse or harassment that takes place is absolutely unacceptable. There's zero tolerance for abuse and harassment in any type of Rotary activity. A Rotary activity is defined as any activity or program of Rotary International, a Rotary District, or a Rotary Club. And it can also include any activity or program wherein an individual is participating in his or her capacity as a Rotarian. It's a pretty broad definition that covers a lot of events that clubs and districts host on a regular basis, whether it is at a club meeting or it could be off-site. For example, it could be at a school or it could be at a youth center, a boys and girls club. It's a very broad definition of what an activity is. When we're talking about youth, there is a misperception out there that we're only talking about minors. In terms of our youth protection policy, youth is defined as any young person, regardless of whether he or she is of legal age or majority. This may include participants in our International Youth Exchange, Student of the Month, school reading programs, Rotaract, Interact, Music Camp, Model UN, and more. It's a very broad definition. When we're talking about volunteers, well, that refers to any adult, including Rotarians, Rotarian spouses and partners, and non-Rotarians that are involved in a Rotary activity who has direct or indirect interactions, either supervised or unsupervised, with youth. It's a very, very broad category for what qualifies as a volunteer under the district youth protection policy. Volunteer are subject to evaluation and screening, with the level of evaluation and screening dependent on the nature and the duration of the direct and indirect contact between volunteers and youth. So what we mean by that is that volunteers, for example, that are hosting youth exchange students within their home are going through additional screening and background checks than volunteers that may, for example, be visiting a school campus off-site. There's still a certain level of qualification that is needed, but when you invite a child from overseas to stay in your home, that does require a greater level of training before that hosting can take place. Volunteers are categorized in accordance with their degree of involvement with youth in the particular activity, and the level of training may vary. So attendees at events. Attendees can be casual or inadvertent contact arising from mere attendance at a Rotary activity. There is no requirement to submit a youth volunteer affidavit. However, attendees are expected to participate whenever possible in abuse and prevention harassment training provided by the club or the district. Supervisors at events are responsible for supervising youth as they participate in a Rotary activity. This includes drivers and passengers in vehicles transporting youth, unless another supervisor or a coordinator is present. Supervisors at events undergo interviews, youth certification. They are encouraged to participate in training to be provided by the district, and they must meet district eligibility requirements for working with youth. That means no convictions or other findings of having participated in abuse or harassment or violence against another person. If accusations or claims are pending, for example, accusation is working its way through the court system, additional safeguards, such as restrictions from that person working with youth, must absolutely be implemented. If that individual is cleared from those charges, they may apply for reinstatement as a supervisor at an event. However, that reinstatement is not necessarily guaranteed. Coordinators at events are responsible, jointly or individually, for planning and executing a Rotary activity where youth are involved, or any volunteer who has assumed overall responsibility for the well-being of youth participating in an activity. They undergo the same requirements as supervisors, especially on the training side. For purposes of protecting youth, it's not necessary to make a determination of whether what somebody has witnessed qualifies as abuse or qualifies as harassment. Both have a zero tolerance and both must be reported. The responsible district youth program official will report to legal authorities. However, any volunteer who reports any form of abuse or harassment needs to ensure that that reporting takes place. So let's talk a little bit about the signs of abuse or harassment. Are there telltale signs that we should be looking for in the event of abuse or harassment taking place? Well, in many cases, there are outward signs. There could be extreme acts or withdrawal from others. There could be low self-esteem, expressions of shame. You might have youth expressing fear, including hesitation around certain individuals. They may also see a decline in school performance, and there might also be changes in sleep or eating patterns, including insomnia or eating disorders. Additional outward signs might include difficulty concentrating, avoidance of certain people, places, or things. You might see youth that are experiencing more in the way of nightmares or specific types of pain, could be abdominal, back, or pelvic pain. Suicidal tendencies, although in some cases those signs are not nearly as visible as one would hope. Other outward signs could include drugs or alcohol or other aggressive behavior. Who is the first line of defense in abuse or harassment? Well, it's youth certified Rotarians, as well as designated club youth protection officers. From a club compliance standpoint, each club should have a designated youth protection officer. That youth protection officer should be known within the club, and the club should have some type of formal youth protection training available to its members. The youth protection officer provides and ensures that that training is conducted on a regular basis and is also involved in ensuring completion of the affidavit of club compliance. From a district standpoint, the district tries to adapt Rotary International's Abuse and Harassment Prevention Training Manual and Leader's Guide to incorporate specific District 5340 guidelines, as well as information on local customs and cultural issues and legal requirements that are specific to our district. We also develop training that accommodates the frequency, method, and scope of training required for different categories of volunteers. On the district side, we also train club youth protection officers to help conduct training sessions for volunteers. The district establishes guidelines to ensure that all volunteers have received the requisite training and maintains records of participation of training and youth certification to ensure full compliance. It's the club's responsibility to ensure that the club and its members are adhering to the district youth protection policies. The club must designate a club youth protection officer and not only communicate that within the club, but also with the district as well. The club is also responsible for training club members on current policies, ensuring protection of youth at all Rotary-related events, and encouraging members to become youth certified. Each Rotarian should be looking for the signs of abuse or harassment and helping to stop the cycle of abuse harassment if it is witnessed. Each Rotarian should also be reporting to the appropriate individuals and organizations, including district and applicable law enforcement. So let's assume that abuse or harassment is reported. What are the next steps from that point? Well, when a report is made, be sure to listen attentively and stay calm. Protect the confidentiality to the extent possible. Get the facts. Don't interrogate, just get the facts, and be non-judgmental. Reassure the individual making the report that you are taking that report very seriously. Also, make a written record of the conversation or conversations as soon as possible. Use the individual's own words as part of your record. If possible, use the district's incident report form for making such a report, and at all costs, protect the youth if necessary, because safety of that youth is absolutely paramount. Report to the appropriate law enforcement authorities and to Rotary, including such agencies like Child Protection Services and the District Youth Protection Officer, no later than within 72 hours. Avoid gossip and blame. That is not our place. And we never want to challenge the alleged offender. This is not your role. Do not attempt to contact any alleged offender. Let law enforcement handle the offender, or let the district youth protection officer handle the situation in non-criminal cases. Follow up to make sure that appropriate steps are being taken to address the situation. Maintain compliance with all federal, state, and local laws. We also comply with the Rotary Youth Protection Guide and the District 5340 Youth Protection Policy. There's been a lot of careful thought that has been developed in this youth protection policy over the past 2 decades. There's a preparation and training of policies that are clearly spelled out within the district, as well as the mention of 2-deep leadership. 2-deep leadership is a concept where there's always 2 individuals that are interacting and certified with each youth. There's never an instance where you have an individual adult who is left alone with a youth, for example, driving that youth home from an activity or interfacing at an activity one-on-one. It's always 2 deep. District guidelines also talk about planning of events to prevent questionable situations. Communication and understanding of activities is absolutely key, as well as a respect of privacy and an adherence to appropriate attire. The district guidelines also spell out appropriate responses. District guidelines also spell out immediate reporting of any suspected incident and encourage Rotarians to always take the moral high road. When uncomfortable, communicate with others. Youth can help ensure youth stay protected via youth certification. The district has rolled out a youthcertified.org. This is a special website that is geared just for individuals that are interested in going through the youth certification process. Youth certification starts with completing a volunteer affidavit. It's a 2-page affidavit form that can easily be filled out. It asks for references and basic biographical information. Once that affidavit is received, you can also begin a background check. Rotary District 5340 has instituted a new background check with a company called IntelliCorp, and we've created a portal that you can see on your screen that walks through and explains some of the disclosures that are required. At the bottom of that page, you can also enter in a password. In that password box, you can simply type in Rotary 5340, all lowercase, and you can begin the background check process. The background check improves risk by using a third-party provider called IntelliCorp. IntelliCorp interfaces with the Youth Exchange Administration Hub and is an established national provider of background checks that is already working with Rotary clubs and districts across North America. We've created this online portal so that Rotarians can securely provide personal data for verification. It's a secure portal that allows you to pay for your background check instantly. No credit reports are involved in any way, shape, or form. This is strictly a background check that adheres to Fair Credit Reporting Act standards. The background check is available for a reduced rate of $12.95 for Rotarians. There may be additional costs depending on if there are charges associated with doing a search within a particular county. The background check also includes a Social Security number verification. It includes a validated multi-state criminal super search database check, a validated nationwide sex offender registry check, a validated check with the Department of Corrections, as well as a check on the terrorist watch list and a review of a single county criminal court records. The third part of becoming youth certified involves education, and we are rolling out a new online training that can help provide review of Rotary youth protection policies and procedures. After you go through the online training, which can be done at your convenience, there is an online test that can be completed after the training. Results are then reported back to the District Youth Protection Officer as part of the youth certification process. All youth certification is going to be reset starting on July 1st, 2017. This is a very big deal. Within District 5340, we have close to 1,500 Rotarians that at one point have been certified for interactions with youth. As part of our new youth certification process, we're resetting everything come July 1. The youth certification will also have an expiration date. The standard youth certification will be valid for 2 years and essentially expire June 30th, 2019. Now, there is the caveat that there are some programs that will require an annual youth certification process. Those programs could include Youth Exchange or RILA or LEAD or other programs where the interaction with youth requires an annual certification. Youth certification can be self-initiated by visiting youthcertified.org, and it's easy for existing club members, but it's also great for incoming new members to go through the youth certification process. In fact, many clubs are encouraged to integrate the youth certification as one of the Red Badge requirements. So again, that web address is youthcertify.org. If you have any questions about this new youth protection policy, feel free to call area code 619-2-ROTARY, or you can also email ypo@rotary5340.org. And with that, I would like to thank you for attending our webinar. If you do have any questions, please feel free to send them along. Thank you very much for attending, and we look forward to seeing you get youth certified very soon.